All right, let's jump straight into this explainer and take a close look at a habit society totally misunderstands, but that science actually completely validates. We're talking about the act of thinking out loud when no one else is around. It's something almost all of us do, right? Yet for some reason, it's shrouded in this bizarre amount of stigma. But I promise you, by the end of our time together today, you're going to see this quiet, seemingly eccentric little habit in an entirely new, deeply empowering light. I want you to really think about the last time you were muttering to yourself in an empty room, or maybe you were walking down a grocery store aisle and someone unexpectedly walked by. You probably felt that immediate, sharp twinge of embarrassment, didn't you? We've literally all been there, instinctively tapping our ear to pretend we're on a Bluetooth call, or awkwardly turning our mumbling into a hummed song. And we do this because society has kind of subtly trained us to believe that talking to ourselves is strange, or maybe even a sign that we're just lonely. But here is the critical turn, and honestly, this is what I absolutely love about the research we're unpacking today. The psychological reality completely flips that societal myth on its head. Far from being a sign of a scattered mind, talking to yourself is actually a sophisticated cognitive tool. In fact, it's a visible, real-time sign of a mind that is constantly learning, adapting, and processing the world at an incredibly efficient level. Okay, Section 1, Unlocking Cognitive Superpowers. We'll be looking at developing higher self-awareness and problem solving. To really wrap our heads around this, let's look at how this habit builds from a basic childhood instinct into an adult superpower of higher self-awareness. Nearly a century ago, the brilliant Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky discovered that kids naturally talk to themselves out loud to guide their own behavior. It's how they learn. But here is the fascinating part. That private speech, it doesn't disappear when we grow up. It just goes underground. It becomes the inner voice that narrates your entire life. Now, for those who still regularly let that voice out loud, it acts as a mental mirror. It gives them a rare level of self-awareness. So instead of just moving through the day on autopilot, like let's face it, most people do, self-talkers pause to reflect. They don't just feel angry, they ask themselves why they feel angry. They interrogate their own thoughts and decisions, making every single quiet conversation this small, powerful act of paying attention to who they are becoming. And this brilliantly illustrates our second trait, strong problem-solving ability. This is exactly why you see engineers pacing at whiteboards or chess players muttering out loud to sequence total chaos into precise steps. When you say a problem out loud, you literally force your brain to slow down. Psychologists call this the self-explanation effect. It takes those fuzzy, half-formed thoughts just kind of floating around in your head and forces them into precise words. It turns a tangled mess of ideas into a single logical line that you can actually follow. Suddenly, your own voice becomes a quality control check running in real time. If a plan has a flaw in it, the second it hits the air, it sounds wrong in a way it never did while it was just bouncing around inside your head. Now, this vocalization also fuels trait number 5, extraordinary focus. It acts like a personal coach that pulls targets right out of the noise. Think of athletes using those short, spoken cues to stay locked in. Eyes up, follow through, stay low. We tend to think that extreme focus requires total silence, head down, mouth shut. But the research shows the exact opposite. In one study, when participants simply said the name of an object they were looking for in a cluttered scene out loud, they found it significantly faster. The spoken word literally sharpened their attention. Saying things out loud locks your brain onto a single task and shuts out the surrounding noise, making you incredibly hard to distract. Moving on to our next section, mastering emotion and creativity. This is all about taking control of the internal chaos. So as we shift from raw cognitive power into internal control, I want you to try this tiny trick the next time you're nervous. Instead of saying, "I am so anxious," use your own name or just the word "you." Say, "Okay, you've got this. You've handled worse." It sounds incredibly simple, right? Almost too simple. But the impact it has on your brain's chemistry and your emotional state is profound. By shifting from the first person to the second or third person, you fundamentally change how your brain processes the stressor right in front of you. University of Michigan psychologist Ethan Kross has spent years studying this exact phenomenon, and he found that creating this psychological distance stops you from drowning in anxiety, allowing your mind to regulate itself in real time. Think of it like this. When you use your own name, you are stepping outside of yourself. You stop being the person swept up in the panic, and suddenly you become the supportive, rational friend offering advice. You name the fear out loud, you challenge the catastrophic thought, and you calm your own nervous system down. That is definitely not a weakness. That is an incredible, highly effective emotional skill. And this naturally flows right into the fourth trait, higher creativity. There is a very good reason inventors, writers, and artists are constantly muttering to themselves while they work. Speaking out loud forces half-formed thoughts to collide into strange new connections.
Creativity is essentially just the act of connecting things that don't obviously belong together. When ideas stay locked inside your silent head, they tend to circle the exact same familiar, safe grooves. But when you speak them out loud, an idea has to take a physical shape. And once it has a shape, you can argue with yourself in stereo. You can play different characters, ask what if, and combine concepts that pure logic alone would have never reached.
Let's look at our next section, building an independent mind and the rebellious act of trusting yourself. In an age of endless scrolling and immediate outside validation, developing an independent mind might just be the most vital trait we cover today. In a world built to tell us exactly what to think, there is a stark contrast in mindsets here. While most people immediately reach outward for answers, asking others, scrolling for opinions, literally looking for someone to tell them what to do, the self-talker reaches inward first. Because they regularly think out loud, they get incredibly used to the sound of their own reasoning. They learn to question it, rigorously test it, and ultimately trust it. They become totally comfortable sitting alone with a really hard problem instead of needing a crowd to hand in the answer. They rely far less on outside approval. In our hyper-connected modern world, making the active choice to hear your own voice over the noise is almost a rebellious act. Finally, we arrive at our last section, the ultimate feedback loop, and a relentless strive to grow.
We've talked about self-awareness, problem-solving, emotional regulation, creativity, focus, and independent thought, but they all culminate in the seventh, and perhaps the rarest trait of the whole shebang, a continuous drive for personal growth. For these individuals, inner dialogue isn't just idle chatter to pass the time, it is an active, vital feedback loop. It's this quiet, constant process of reflection, accountability, and adjustment. People who talk to themselves treat their own lives like an ongoing project. After a hard day, they speak out loud to replay it and ask what they could have done differently. Before a big moment, they rehearse it. And when they fail, they don't just sit there in the bad feeling. They actively interrogate the failure out loud to see what it has to teach them. Real growth doesn't happen in massive, dramatic leaps. It happens in thousands of small, private conversations where you hold yourself accountable, forgive yourself, and decide exactly how you're going to do better tomorrow. So the crucial takeaway here is that these 7 rare traits completely prove that the voice in the empty room is not a weakness. It's the sound of a mind refusing to stop improving. Higher self-awareness, sharper problem-solving, steadier emotions, deeper creativity, stronger focus, independent thinking, and a relentless drive to grow. All of these incredible cognitive and emotional superpowers are carried by one quiet voice when no one else is around. What the world so easily dismisses as odd actually turns out to be one of the most sophisticated, useful tools the human mind has ever developed for optimizing itself. And honestly, the best part? You've had access to it all along. So the next time you catch yourself thinking out loud, I really want you to pause before you let that old feeling of embarrassment wash over you. Don't quiet yourself down. Instead, embrace it as the powerful cognitive tool it truly is. And ask yourself this: what is your inner voice trying to teach you today? Listen closely, because the one person who has the exact answer you've been looking for might just be you.